Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, ladies and gentlemen of the public jury, one and all, listen up. The time is now approximately 7:30 p.m. October 25th, 2025, and I am here in the Peel region. Yes, in the Peel region again. And this is a continuation of the unauthorized police tracking and surveillance of my movements. Now, ladies and gentlemen, approximately 6:20 p.m. or 6:25 p.m. this evening, I was traveling in the Martin Grove and Rexdale area when actually I was sitting for a bit, and I noticed that a certain vehicle passed my vicinity on several occasions, right? And so therefore I just took mental note of it, the fact that the vehicle passed more than once. Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, at some point I moved, and then I went to a Tim Hortons just by Martin Grove and Rexdale, by the gas station there. I believe it's a Esso gas station. And lo and behold, as soon as I pulled in, I noticed a car pulled into my left. And I looked over and I noticed it's the same car from earlier, and I said, And then just as I saw that, a car pulled in between us. And then I noticed that the person is actually looking through the car and looking over into my car. So I'm like, whoa. So it's as if we're both looking at each other. So at this point, I said, let me go see if this is the same car. I come out and I look. Yes, I had my phone in my hand. And yes, it may have appeared that I could have been recording, but that was not the case. And this can be proven. Nevertheless, I observed that it was the same vehicle, and coupled with the fact that I saw the other gentleman came out just before I got out my car. Same two people in the car. So at that point, I decided, you know what? Don't go any further from here. I went back into my car. I was actually going to wait until they leave, right? I went over into another corner of the parking space, and I stood there making something to eat, and then I looked to my right, and there was the guy that was in the passenger seat of the car with his phone recorded. And I was like, whoa. And then for a moment, I briefly looked down and then back up, because I'm like, what's going on here? They go, oh, why are you recording, or why are you recording us? Why are you recording us? I'm like, listen, bud, I don't know what you're talking about. And as soon as I said that, his partner knocked on the left side on my window. And I looked over, and he pulled out something from his waistband that appears to be a badge, but it looks very tiny, like a little tiny badge. Now, neither of these people at the time identified themselves as police officer, right? The guy to my left kept saying, he kept saying something, right? But none of it was relevant, because, again, he didn't identify himself as a police officer. He just took out the badge and said, if I know who I'm recording, and that's all I recall. Everything else he said is just gibberish, right? And so at that point, I said, you know what? I stepped out of my car. I said, look, why are you guys, I am over here. Why are you guys over here? Why you come over here? You understand? Why you come all the way over here with all of this nonsense? Okay, you're police officers, right? Good. Whether or not you're off duty, you're a police officer. You're a police officer. You understand? No. You can't just come out and in the public and behave like this. This is not proper behavior. No. Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of went off topic, but these guys now, like I said, it turned into a heated argument because they're now asking about who I am and blah, 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 and they're going to find out who I am and all of this stuff. So I'm like, at this point, this is no longer a regulated interaction. Words are being flung here and there to the point where they stopped in the middle of the road. After driving off, they stopped in the middle of the road, got out of his car, and this officer is calling me on to a fight. Now, at the time, I didn't know that these guys were officers, like I said. I didn't even cross my mind. I'm wondering who these people are, to be honest with you. You understand? Now, they got in their car and they left. I left the area at some point and I noticed that there was 2 other cars also, which was attempting to follow me. Anyways, I continue on my journey until I make it here over into, I'm in the Rexwood and Derry area, right? And I stopped to get some coffee here and decided that, you know what, I'm going to make a report, right? And so I called the police station, 23 Division. At first, they told me, the lady put me through to the station and said, oh, to speak to the sergeant. When they put me through, some lady answered and said, oh, no, sergeant is not here, whatever, right? Now, she put me through to another guy who now, by the time he came on the phone, I'm sorry, the girl that actually answered, she went away for a good 5 minutes or so, and she came back and she says, oh, yes, they were officers, and yeah, they were officers, but she didn't go any further than that. It was a guy that she put me through that actually told me that now that as soon as I came on the phone, before I even tell him anything, he's telling me that these guys are saying these guys are his guys and that they were on their way to work. They stopped at this place to buy something where they encountered me filming their license plates, right? And there wasn't much he said after that. He didn't say much other than that, right? I believe he caught the argument there and started asking me some questions or something, but that's the basic gist of what he's saying that they're saying. And when I'm trying to explain to him that, look, these guys approached me like this, calling me onto a fight in the middle of the street and carrying on like this, and these guys are supposed to be what, police officers? They didn't even identify themselves as police officers, and they're telling you that they did it. They didn't identify themselves as police officers. Just flashing your badge like this don't mean anything. And that's one of the main reasons why I called, is because I want to know if these guys were actual police officers who were behaving like this in the middle of the street. Now, the officer is going to tell me that he's not going to take any report because nothing wrong was done. I said, okay, sir, thank you very much. And I took his badge number. I believe his badge number here is 7849. And this is, I think, I don't know, maybe an officer supervisor from 23 Division in Toronto. Ladies and gentlemen, the struggle goes on. The battle is warm. And we're not afraid of the storm. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am not certain if this was a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidence, considering the fact that, as you can see, I have a slew of videos where I don't know if it's my luck or unluck, or even though I don't buy into these things, that I'm always running into these police officers. This is not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. When they're in uniform and when they're not in uniform, when they're going to work, when they're not, why am I always so lucky? And again, the main reason why I look is because I wanted to see if these guys were actually this, and it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence, right? Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, we are out here and we have no fear, and the battle goes on.